welcome to the deep dive.
Good to be talking about this.
Yeah, today we're really peeling back the layers on, one of the most tangled situations right now, the Ethio-Eritrean border.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely heated up again.
Exactly. And we're focusing on this group, the Red Sea Afar Democratic Organization, RSADO, an Eritrean opposition group.
Right.
We're looking at their recent actions and maybe more importantly, the kind of contradictory, messy responses they've kicked off across the Horn.
Yeah, it's complicated stuff.
So our mission for you listening in isn't just to give you the headlines. We want to get to the core puzzle.
Which is?
Why is this graduation a new batch of RSADO fighters? Why is this more than just a small military event? Why is it a potential geopolitical turning point?
Because it is.
The sources we've dug into suggest this one thing has basically thrown a spotlight on these wildly conflicting strategies, especially from Ethiopia. We need to figure out what Addis Ababa is actually up to.
You've really hit the nail on the head there. That's the central conflict. RSADO's move, it's symbolic, yeah. A big declaration.
But practical, too.
Absolutely practical. It fundamentally changes the security calculations right away. This isn't just some minor skirmish bubbling up again.
No old news here.
Not at all.
Oh.
This is an active challenge to Eritrea's authority, and it immediately affects stability across the whole Horn. It feels like a deliberate turn of the screw.
Okay, so let's start with that catalyst, the core event. RSADO announced they graduated new fighters.
After 3 months of pretty specialized training, it seems.
Yeah, and their commander, Ibrahim Harun, was quoted praising their discipline, their determination, said it was a step towards strengthening the organization's military capabilities.
Which says a lot. It's not just numbers, it suggests they can actually mobilize and train people properly. Discipline takes resources.
Significant resources, you'd think.
It points to capacity, for sure. But also maybe a more sophisticated long-term view.
How so?
Well, RSADO's stated mission, obviously, is about defending the Red Sea Afar communities, resisting what they call Eritrean government repression. That's standard opposition talk. But what made this graduation really stand out, alongside the new fighters, was the strategic vision Harun talked about.
Ah, yes. That part definitely jumped out from the sources, the really bold idea. Developing naval capabilities.
Exactly. I mean, just think about the logistics of that, the sheer audacity.
Eritrea has controlled that coast for ages, right? Militarily.
Undisputed control, really.
Yeah.
So even just saying you want to contest that, that's huge. It doesn't mean they have warships tomorrow.
No, of course not.
But it suggests they're thinking beyond just land-based guerrilla tactics. It implies needing boats, training for sea operations, trying to hit Eritrea along that crucial coastline, key shipping lanes there.
That shows some serious strategic thinking, planning ahead.
Definitely. And crucially, look where they say the support is coming from. They weren't shy.
No, they publicly thanked the Afar regional government and the people of Ethiopia, called that solidarity a key pillar for their activities.
And that statement alone, it shifts things. It moves them from maybe being seen as a fringe group to, well, an acknowledged player. Backed, legitimate in a regional sense.
With grassroots support, potentially.
Right. And when an opposition group fighting one country can openly thank a regional government in a neighboring country for keeping them going.
It tells you a lot about the real alliances.
It tells you exactly where the lines are drawn. This isn't some secret backroom deal anymore. It's public leverage. And it immediately puts Ethiopia's role, this complex role, right under the spotlight.
Okay, so RSADO makes this move, this announcement, and Asmar's reaction?
Immediate, predictably, perhaps. RSADO's escalation, especially that mention of naval power, it instantly triggered defensive moves from Eritrea.
Preemptive, too, sounds like.
Yeah, heightening the risk of a direct clash. They had to react to the coastal threat, even if just implied, and the real threat to stability inside their borders.
So what did they actually do?
The reports we've seen indicate it was swift. Significant redeployments of forces. We're seeing concrete examples. Eritrean forces repositioning near critical areas. Welkate, for one. Hajar as well.
And Welkate. Listeners should know that's incredibly sensitive territory, historically disputed, claimed by different groups inside Ethiopia.
Exactly. Amhara, Tigray, any troop movement there by Eritrea is a major signal. It suggests they're readying for something big.
And the reporting from the ground reflected that sense of crisis.
It did. For instance, the Tigray Broadcast Service. They reported, and phrasing is telling, that Shabia has returned to Welkate.
Shebia, that's the common term for the Eritrean ruling party. It's military.
That's the one. So using that term just underscores how people in the region see it. Eritrea actively, maybe aggressively moving back into these very sensitive zones, it confirms the conflict is widening.
Not just posturing, then.
Seems like a clear signal they're ready for a serious confrontation. Reports also detail Eritrea reinforcing defenses elsewhere. Strategic spots like Assab.
The port. Crucial.
Crucial port. And Hajar, a major border crossing. They're basically digging in, reinforcing their lines, sending a message they're prepared to meet RSADO's challenge.
And prepared for the implied confrontation with Ethiopia that's kind of behind RSADO?
That seems to be the calculation, yes. Preparing for a potential proxy fight playing out on their territory.
That's a heavy strategic decision being made in Asmara. They're reacting to the hostile intent behind the announcement, not waiting for actual ships.
Precisely. The threat is credible enough.
Okay, this is where, for me, the sources really start showing the central puzzle. Let's call it the Ethiopian contradiction.
Yeah, it's confusing on the surface.
Because RSADO's ability to train fighters, equip them, announce it all publicly, and thank the Asar region, that just can't happen without, at the very least, tacit approval from Addis Ababa, right? From Prime Minister Abiy's government, maybe even direct support.
It seems highly unlikely it could happen otherwise. Ethiopia is essentially letting a hostile force gear up right on its border, aimed squarely at its neighbor, Eritrea.
Okay, but if that's true, if Ethiopia is backing this group threatening Eritrea, then how do we square that with the other things happening, the high-level diplomacy?
Right, because at the same time, this proxy support seems to be enabling military escalation.
Ethiopian federal officials are doing things that suggest the total opposite, like they're chasing peace and normalization.
And the contrast is really stark. Look at that recent visit, Redwan Hussein. He's Ethiopia's national security advisor.
Top level?
Top level.
Yeah.
And Getachew Reda, the president of the Tigray Interim Administration. They went together to Buri.
Buri, which is right on the border, a very sensitive strategic town.
Symbolic, too.
Extremely symbolic. And the official story for that visit.
It was all framed as internal stuff, wasn't it? Development.
Purely. A development mission. The narrative was all about reconstruction, normalization, peace between Ethiopians, projecting stability, regional cooperation.
Okay.
But just think about that image, this carefully managed message of peace and development happening in Buri.
Well, just down the road, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just a short distance away. In a foreign Tigray, you've got this Ethiopian-backed insurgent group beating its chest, announcing military expansion, talking about naval ambitions.
So does Ethiopia even have a coherent policy here? Peace talk on one side of the border, enabling conflict on the other. It feels like mixed signals doesn't even cover it.
That's the million-dollar question you, the listener, have to wrestle with. Are we seeing a really coherent Red Sea strategy playing out? Is Ethiopia maybe using this ambiguity deliberately for leverage? Or are we just seeing competing agendas, different factions working in parallel? Maybe the federal leadership wants one thing, normalization perhaps, while regional players like the Afar administration have their own older conflicts with Asmara they're pursuing.
Let's unpack that first idea. Calculated ambiguity, if this is intentional, what's the win for Ethiopia? What's the strategic gain?
Well, if it's calculated, the main gain is leverage. Pure and simple. Ethiopia's stated goals, sea access is a big one, stabilizing the region, but on their terms. So, by supporting RSADO, maybe other Eritrean opposition groups too, Ethiopia keeps Asmara guessing, keeps them off balance. It's a reminder that Ethiopia holds a powerful card, the ability to stir up trouble inside Eritrea.
So the development visits, like Buri, become the carrot.
Exactly. Cooperate with us on normalization. Or you face this proxy pressure. It's trying to maximize diplomatic options by showing military teeth indirectly.
But that sounds incredibly risky, which brings us to the second option. Maybe it's not calculated, maybe it's policy fragmentation.
That's the other possibility.
If the Afar regional government is backing RSADO based on its own local interests, its own history with Eritrea, does that mean Abiy's government in Addis isn't fully in control?
That's the danger. That the federal strategy, whatever it is, could be undermined by actions taken at the regional level. Kinetic actions.
So the federal government might lose control of its own allies.
That is the deep policy contradiction the sources seem to expose. This ambiguity. It could strengthen Ethiopia's hand regionally, yes, but only if Addis keeps tight control over these regional proxies like the Afar fighters.
And if they don't?
If those fighters start acting on their own agendas, their own timelines, focused maybe just on defending their own communities or settling old scores.
Then the federal government loses its leverage.
Loses its negotiating chip, exactly, and risks getting dragged into a conflict that escalates way beyond what Addis intended. It exposes potentially dangerous cracks within Ethiopia itself.
Okay, let's zoom back in on RSADO itself for a moment. The group right at the center of this. That graduation was clearly a boost for them, morale, publicity. But announcing new fighters, and especially talking about naval ambitions publicly, doesn't that kind of wreck the main advantage of guerrilla warfare? Surprise?
It certainly does. You're basically painting a target on your back. This public posturing, it directly invites Eritrean countermoves. Targeted ones.
So it exposes the opposition fighters themselves to heightened risks, as one source put it.
Operationally, yes. The risk to the fighters on the ground is acute, but there is a broader political risk, too, for the entire Eritrean opposition movement.
How so?
Well, Commander Haroun made this public call, remember, urging all Eritrean opposition groups to unite.
Which sounds logical. Unity is strength, right?
Absolutely essential if they want to pose a truly credible threat to Asmara.
But the reality is probably messier.
The reality, according to the reports we're seeing, is far messier. Sources talk about significant alliance ambiguity.
Meaning?
Meaning RSADO seems to be acting quite independently. And that risks confusing, maybe even alienating, the bigger umbrella groups, like the Eritrean political forces, the EPF. If RSADO is making these big moves without clear, documented agreements with the other groups, it doesn't build unity. It could actually weaken the cohesion of what's already a very fragmented opposition landscape.
Highlighting the divisions instead of bridging them.
Precisely. So this bold initiative from RSADO, it kind of underscores how badly these opposition forces need transparent agreements. They need to build trust amongst themselves. And right now, that doesn't seem to be happening effectively.
And that lack of coordination, that fragmentation, it has bigger implications.
Oh, huge implications for the whole Horn of Africa. The most serious risk here is the region sliding back into a cycle of sustained proxy warfare.
The ingredients are all there.
You've got RSADO escalating militarily. You've got Eritrea mobilizing urgently along key border points. And you've got Ethiopia playing this complex, ambiguous, maybe two-faced game.
It's the perfect storm for instability.
It really is. And if that happens, if it does slide into proxy war,
then the AFAR fighters, the ones who just graduated, they become the frontline troops.
Very likely. They become the frontline force in a much bigger fight, effectively fighting Ethiopia's proxy battle against Eritrea.
With the AFAR region itself bearing the direct consequences, the violence.
That's the scenario where unclear policy in Addis Ababa, whether it's cleverly calculated or just accidental incoherence, translates directly, lethally into real-world violence and instability on the ground.
So for RSADO, this is a massive gamble.
A very high-stakes gamble. It's testing their own determination against Eritrea's reaction. It will either somehow solidify their cause, give them more legitimacy, or it deepens the instability, deepens the fragmentation, and makes things much, much worse for the region.
And which way it goes seems to hang on figuring out our central puzzle. Ethiopia's conflicting signals.
Yes. The next few months are really going to test whether Addis Ababa can actually manage the forces it seems to be encouraging, or at least allowing.
Okay, so thinking about that core puzzle, Ethiopia's contradictory policies, the support for AFAR fighters alongside this development push in Buri, what do you think poses the greater long-term risk to peace in the region?
It's a tough one.
Is it the risk that Ethiopia's government eventually loses control of these regional allies, these insurgent groups, that the conflict just spirals out of Addis Ababa's hands?
That's one possibility. Unintended escalation.
Or is the greater risk that Ethiopia's calculated ambiguity actually works too well? That it successfully provokes the proxy war they might want, locking the region into another devastating, prolonged cycle of instability?
That's the danger of, weaponizing incoherence, isn't it? Either losing control or succeeding too well and starting something terrible.
Exactly. A really complex situation and something for you to think about. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.